Chapter 46. It was dark. The night wind was cold. Siddle stood with her arms crossed, shivering in front of the iron gate of the restricted area. The village chief stood in front of her, his tone cold as he said, "This place is forbidden." He had repeated this sentence 13 times. After staying at the village chief's house, Siddle had rushed over to find out that the sacrificial ceremony had already begun. However, no matter what she said to the village chief, this white-bearded old man would only repeat the same sentence. "This place is forbidden." Just like an NPC programmed with gestures and a line of dialogue. The only good thing was that although the doll had been brought to the restricted area, the sacrificial ceremony had not officially begun. 8 warriors holding torches and wearing black cloaks stood behind the village chief, seemingly waiting for the time to enter the restricted area to begin the sacrifice. Siddle asked for a long time without any results. Jacqueline was also trembling on the side, hugging her shoulders and squatting in the corner, her purple lips trembling slightly. "Look, I told you, we can't participate in the ceremony at all, Siddle." She also didn't expect that this village chief was really like a mentally handicapped NPC in a game who could only speak fixed lines. Not only the village chief, but also the 8 men behind him seemed to be the same, standing motionless on the spot, without any reaction to Siddle and Jacqueline. Wait, this was originally a game. An idea flashed through Siddle's mind. She suddenly thought of a possibility. She no longer asked whether she could enter, but instead asked tentatively, "Is it because I'm missing something that I can't enter the ceremony?" "You're missing a torch." Sure enough, perhaps because of the game content activation keyword, the village chief replied with another sentence, "Today only brave warriors can enter the restricted area. 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 Brave warriors can enter the restricted area, but they can't. The warrior must carry the torch." "Siddle, dear venerable priest, where should I get the torch?" "You can go to the store to buy it," said the village chief, "but the goods in the store are sold out." Siddle. This is a nonsense line, saying it is useless. Village chief, but perhaps you can find the torch in some corner of the village. After receiving the information, Siddle did not leave immediately, but after the conversation with the village chief, she continued to talk to each warrior. "Tonight is the night of the full moon. We must carry out the ritual of offering dolls to the water god. This year's doll has a name. This year's doll is really beautifully made. It really looks like a real person. The name is called Siddle. The water god will definitely be very pleased because there are very few such beautiful dolls. Next year there will be more abundant spring water." Siddle real-life version. Oh, these people think very well. If today, this sacrificial ceremony can be completed, then from now on Siddle will write her name backwards. These torchbearers seem to only have one sentence to say. After saying that sentence, they ignore Siddle. She walked around this place once, but they still pretended not to see her. Siddle did not leave immediately. She looked at the gradually darkening sky and thought of the reminder from the young man just now. After the sacrificial ceremony begins, do not stay outside. But if it is not possible without a torch, seeing that the doll is about to be sacrificed, she cannot just wait here. Siddle quickly made a decision. She left the restricted area, and sure enough, there was not a single person on the way back to the village. Siddle followed the scene in her memory on the way here, quickly going to the store. The whole way did not encounter anything strange. Siddle met the store owner soon after. However, the shopkeeper gave the same answer as the village chief: "All the torches are sold out." Siddle threw the crowbar hard onto the wooden table, the sharp hook sending wood chips flying. She smiled at the shopkeeper in a friendly manner. "Really? I don't believe it." She looked behind the shopkeeper and said, "Your house is quite large, do you mind if I come in and sit for a while?" Jacqueline looked at Siddle's robber-like behavior. The little girl covered her face in embarrassment. quietly shrinking into a corner. The shopkeeper trembled. Really, really gone. Not even a single one left. Siddle didn't say anything, quietly rolling up her sleeves. The shopkeeper. He quickly said, actually, I left one for myself, but it just disappeared. Siddle was starting to feel depressed now. If the shopkeeper wasn't lying, the remaining torch should be somewhere in this village, but... She looked at the dark sky outside, remembering the young man's warning. Her head ached slightly, feeling that finding a torch in such a big village wouldn't be easy. But after Siddle went out regardless, she realized that she had worried too much. The torch appeared very clearly, right in front of the stone statue in the middle of the wooden bridge across the lake. By the way, in front of the stone statue was a female ghost. Her clothes were tattered, and her whole body was bleeding. Siddle. In the cold wind, she shivered and wrapped herself in her skirt, looking at the female ghost, falling into deep thought. In the end, Siddle still returned to the Forbidden Land empty-handed. She said to the village chief, I truly admire the water god. Even though I don't have a torch, my heart is hotter than fire. The village chief said, this place is forbidden. Siddle was furious, swinging the crowbar towards the village chief. But that torch is in the hands of the female demon. Can you get it for me? Can you? The village chief turned a blind eye, unmoved. Siddle, all right. She snorted angrily, turned around and pulled Jacqueline away. When they reached an open space, Siddle let go of Jacqueline, her expression calmed down. She stared into Jacqueline's eyes and said, I have something to do, I need your help. Siddle decided to take a gamble. She glanced at the stone pillars and not far away. Next to each stone pillar there was a brave man standing, 2 in a row, but each stone pillar was 5 or 6 meters apart. The dark sky added to the words and actions of this group of people as if they were mentally retarded. Siddle had a vague guess in her mind. But after telling Jacqueline about her plan, she only received a horrified look from the little girl. Jacqueline whispered, Are you crazy? There are so many of them, and they're not idiots. Siddle, no, I think they're idiots. After all, this was just a game world. If you don't cooperate with me, Siddle thought for a moment, leaned closer to Jacqueline, and said coldly, when their sacrificial ritual succeeds, after the doll named Siddle is sacrificed to the water god, guess what I'll turn into? Will it turn into something strange? Jacqueline finally agreed to Siddle's plan, but she still had one more problem. But I don't have a weapon. Siddle happily raised the crowbar. Wait a minute, I'll dig bricks for you. Jacqueline. The little girl watched as Siddle walked to the corner of the flower bed with a crowbar, squatted down and dug for a while, excitedly handed her a red brick covered in mud, thought of something and then gestured to the back of her neck. Here, here and there, if you directly hit these places, you might be able to knock them down without killing them. Jacqueline, in the end, why is she so skilled? This person really doesn't have a criminal record. Jacqueline was scared out of her wits when she heard that. After Siddle finished speaking, she hesitantly measured the red brick in her hand. Still hesitating, Siddle couldn't wait any longer. She pulled Jacqueline and pressed her down behind the last stone pillar, while she herself took advantage of the darkness, bent her waist and leaned over another stone pillar, signaling to Jacqueline with her hand. Siddle intended to knock down a torchbearer, take his torch and cloak, and blend into the crowd. These people stood in groups of 2, not moving at all. If a blow had hit, the people in front would not have been able to detect it. But the problem was that they were lined up in a row of 2. Siddle couldn't do it alone, so he pulled Jacqueline to help. Siddle wasn't worried about her skills, she was just afraid that Jacqueline's attack wasn't strong enough. However, it seemed that Jacqueline was also very talented at beating people. After she signaled to move forward, she quickly raised a brick and smashed it down. Immediately after that, the 2 men in cloaks who were knocked unconscious were dragged aside. Siddle quickly took off the black cloaks on them, put them on, and conveniently picked up the torch. Seeing Jacqueline standing to the side with an expression of wanting to say something but stopping, she hurriedly urged her, Why haven't you put your clothes on yet? Jacqueline was surprised. Huh. I have to change too. The little girl was reluctant to do this, but heard Siddle coldly say, "You don't have to change, as long as you're willing to wait until they all enter the restricted area, then you stay here alone to face the female ghost." Jacqueline. Finally, two people in black cloaks, holding torches, walked out from behind the stone pillar. Sure enough, the people in front did not notice anything unusual. Siddle breathed a sigh of relief. As soon as they stood in place, the sacrifice ceremony had already begun. The village chief opened the iron gate, leading the 8 people behind him into the forbidden area. This place was a large grassland, with a lake in the middle. In front of the lake was an altar, a doll placed on it. Siddle used the light of the torch to take a closer look, and found that the doll was extremely small, probably only the size of her palm. Seeing the village chief turn around, facing the people holding the torches, Siddle quietly put down the torch, stood it upright on the ground, bent down, and walked cautiously forward. She discovered that these people were really like pre-programmed NPCs in the game. Their eyes seemed to be blind, and they could not see her small movements. They just followed the original fixed order, standing still in place. It really looked very retarded. Taking advantage of the flickering light in the darkness, Siddle sneaked behind the altar, reached out to hug the doll in her arms, and then returned the same way. After she picked up the torch and stood in position, it was just as the village chief finished a series of rambling incantations, and when he turned around to look, the doll on the altar had already disappeared. Village chief. Siddle hugged the doll tightly in her arms, because she had just held it, she had not had time to see clearly what the doll looked like. Siddle reached into her arms and remembered that she had not paid attention to the game console since she entered this village. After leaving, she still had to check how the game console was. I wonder if it can be opened in the game. Maybe I can even give this game a Russian doll. Siddle was lost in thought when he suddenly heard the village chief's cold voice, "The sacrificial doll has been stolen." She raised her head and saw the village chief's icy and angry expression. "We must find the doll. Otherwise, the sacrifice will fail. Baruna village will be in trouble." After he finished speaking, those quiet black robes suddenly began to stir. Siddle quietly pressed the doll into her arms again. Stealing the doll had nothing to do with her. Who told these people to have vision problems? That's not called stealing. She took it openly. Siddle stood there, listening to the increasingly noisy sounds around her, suddenly thinking of Slender Man still standing at the village gate. Is it because the iron door is blocking the way in? It's pitiful for the deformed office worker who's always trying to find Jacqueline's figure, but is blocked by a small door. Now that the sacrifice has been lost, if Baruna village offends the water god because of the failed sacrifice, and suffers disaster, it would be pitiful. Siddle suddenly understood. She felt that she should do something now. For example, let Slender Man realize his wish to enter the village. For example, let Baruna village get a doll and perform another sacrifice. Perfect. Siddle shed a few crocodile tears in her heart for her own kindness. Look at how understanding she was and how selfless she was. Even if Slender Man wanted to hang her on a tree to dry as dried meat, and even if Baruna village considered her a sacrifice, she would still think of them wholeheartedly, not asking for anything in return. She sighed, very solemnly walked past the people in front of her, sincerely patted the village chief on the shoulder with an honest expression. "Sir Priest, I have a way to find a doll for sacrifice." The village chief was stunned. He looked at the little girl inside the black cloak, suddenly feeling a bit familiar. He asked, "What way?" Of course, he opened the door for